Garlich, thanks for sitting down with me today. I appreciate it. Garlich, the ESA has recently launched a new brand image, a new website. Mm-hmm. What is it that the association's hoping to gain from that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was about time that we tried to modernize a little bit. Of course, like I think any organization, after a few years, you start to rethink your branding, your image, the way that you communicate to third parties. And we felt that on the one hand we were a bit too technical. Many of the positions and many of the papers that you will find on the new website actually were already on the old one as well. But maybe they were a bit more hidden away, and there was not enough content on that website that would appeal to a wider public. It was really very much a specialist website. And what we have tried to do with the new website is to make sure that also interested parties, but not seed specialists, would find interesting information, would understand a bit better what is the plant breeding sector doing, what are we working on, what are our priorities, why are we working on certain issues, and would find it easier to understand also the large variety of crops, for example, that we're active in. So we have, for example, one element which is the so-called Crop of the Month initiative, where we try to explain a little bit of why tomatoes or why rye are important for agriculture, for food, and report interesting facts about these kind of crops. It's not only about trying to make the seed sector more likable, but also to show that indeed it's on the one hand a very modern sector, but on the other hand also a sector that is very much grounded in tradition and in its principal purpose, which still is improving varieties for food security, food quality, and of course addressing agricultural challenges.
Last month there was a group of 11 EU-level associations came together and presented a paper called our joint declaration called Food for Thought, a vision for unlocking the potential of agriculture and food industries in the EU. What was the purpose of the declaration, and how did the ESA play a role in that?
We have been part of this from the beginning. In the beginning, indeed, it was only a few of those 11 associations coming together with, if I may say so, a common complaint. We all felt, and that was mainly agricultural input industries and their associations, we felt that we were a bit neglected by the current European Commission, or I should meanwhile say almost the last European Commission. We felt people didn't understand what we were doing, why it would be important what we're doing, and how they should help us indeed achieving our objectives, and how they would relate to wider policy initiatives, such as innovation, growth in rural areas, and so forth. So from that core group, if I may say so, of which ASA was a member, it then very quickly turned out that there were others facing similar challenges. And in the end, indeed, as you said, we have 11 associations. It is basically a farm to fork approach meanwhile, so it's agricultural input industries, crop protection, biotechnology, seed and others, up to the farmers, including the farm organization and including Food Drink Europe, which is the food industry association. And I think what is really uniting this, this group is our common call to promote and strengthen innovation in the agri-food chain. Because we all felt that this is an element of policy that is strangely missing from the European Union's policy agenda. There is a lot of support, both politically and financially, for innovation, but sadly that is usually not covering the agricultural sector. And that is what we hope to address with this joint declaration, making people understand how important this sector is, and trying to promote understanding, and with that, in the end, as I said, gather support for a stronger role of the European Union in this policy area.
Right, and along down this maybe a similar type of a path, you a year ago now put a restriction on the use of neonics. Considerable impact on the seed industry. So we're 1 year into a 2-year restriction ban. What are you hearing from the industry as far as effect on yield, costs, dollars of impact? Anything you can share with us?
It is difficult to say at this point in time because, of course, the ban came into force, effectively came into force when the so-called transitional period ended, which meant that the oilseed rape that was harvested this year usually was still treated with neonics. But the oilseed rape that was put in the ground this year has not been. So the real effects will become visible only in the year 2015. From what we hear, and also I think what you could have very likely heard across the floors during the 3 days of our annual meeting here in Lisbon, is that there are quite many worries. Both as regards impact on yield, impact on quality, in particular in the seed production area, because it is not only about consumption, it's not only about the commercial product in the end, but it's also about the plant breeding and the seed production, where the quality standards have to be even higher, of course, to meet farmers' expectations, and where the neonicotinoids played a crucial role to assure their quality. What is interesting is what we're hearing also is that in a number of member states, it is beekeepers and others that begin to criticize the European Union's political decision because they see the effect that indeed farmers have to use older products, have to use other technology which is less specific, less targeted, and potentially poses even larger risks to bees. So I think what we have seen over the year is that there is more realism, but also a more differentiated view on what do these products actually do, how do they do it, and what are potential alternatives or what are not potential alternatives. So I think this is hopefully a good base for now quickly readdressing that ban. We have the feeling that the Commission is also here again dragging its feet a little bit. We would like to see this review being started as quickly as possible, so that within the end of the coming year we have clear indications how these products may, and for what kind of products, they may be reauthorized for our membership.
Anecdotally, I heard a story while I was here this week in the UK about a shift, a temporary shift for allowing farmers to use neonics in UK. Is that accurate? Don't mean to put you on the spot with this, Garlich.
No, I think it is. It is true that we have, on the one hand, we have had a number of emergency authorizations in some member states for different products, where the member states allowed the use of the neonicotinoids for very specific crops in their country. That shows that indeed for some crops and for some uses there are actually no alternatives. So that has happened. The UK had a similar discussion. In the end there was no emergency authorization granted in the UK, which I think was mainly because the discussion came a bit too late. So that very likely, even if granted, the actual practical effect would not have been very strong, because you still need obviously to plan way ahead. You need to treat the seed, you need to get it to your customers, which apparently in the UK was not really possible anymore. But what we have seen is indeed in a number of countries the practical discussion about what else would we need to do, what are the alternative uses, has indeed in the end led member states to decide no, then in this case indeed the use of modern neonics in seed treatment is the best available technology option.
So we're here in Lisbon. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Another fantastic annual meeting. ISA has raised the bar yet again. I think we've set a new attendance record.
We did.
Again. 920 attendees. Congratulations. I didn't even get the drum roll going. That's a great number. That obviously shows considerable engagement from the members, which is fantastic. You got to share with the members some of the highlights of the association. What's the one thing, the kind of the number one thing you take away from this past year, Garlich?
I think we had 2-3 main policy areas that we've been active on. One is what we presented during our General Assembly was our new so-called vision document, Speak Up for Seeds. I think that is indeed going to be key for the sector in Europe, to get, on the one hand, ourselves to speak up for seed, so to be active, to go out, meet decision makers, meet the public, meet the media, but also meet groups that are critical of what we're doing, and explain better and again why this sector is a crucial one to meet the grand challenges of tomorrow. This document will serve as kind of an introduction to our sector's work and the main challenges that we're facing. But we also see it as a kind of as an umbrella under which many of the other, very often quite technical and very specific issues well fit. So this document is crucial for the future work in relation to our outreach and our advocacy. I think the second element definitely has been the discussion about the Nagoya Protocol for access and benefit sharing and the EU's regulation on implementing that, and on the alternative that we see, which is an improved international treaty under the FAO for plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. We had very lengthy and very difficult also internal discussions about this, but in the end, and we have announced that officially today, we have decided to, on the one hand, continue the work with the treaty for an improvement of its rules and procedures, that they fit better with the practicalities of our sector's work, but at the same time also to state that we are willing to take our own responsibility, our share of that responsibility. And we have announced officially today that the European seed sector will make a voluntary financial contribution to the treaty's Access and Benefit Sharing Fund in order to do our share as regards preservation and utilization of genetic resources. These, I think, are the two absolute highlights. We've had many discussions about the future policy on GMOs in Europe, the renationalization, you have heard about that, I think, in particular also in the States. So there are many other policy items, many of them indeed centering, and that's what it makes it very interesting, centering again about the question of what role for innovation in plant breeding, what role for innovation in agriculture, what role for innovation in food production. Many of them relate to that, and I think that has been a bit like the red line that has gone through the whole annual meeting here in Lisbon.
We also have launched a new magazine, European Seed, launched at Lisbon here at the annual meeting. From all accounts, to a huge success. Everyone very pleased with the outcome of that. I want to personally thank you and your team for all your support and insight on this initiative. I think that the proof is in the pudding, that the industry has adopted this as their publication and are seeing lots of benefits already from just having the first issue being launched. How do you see the seed industry in Europe kind of latching on to this publication, and what's going to be the benefit for them?
I think the reason why they're indeed latching on this publication is that there has been none that was comparable. We have had a couple of more, let's say, more specific sector internal publications, I should say. And I think that is what, from what I have seen and what I have read, really distinguishes this magazine a little bit from the existing ones. It is more approachable, it's more readable, also for the non-specialists. So for people who are interested in our sector, interested in plant breeding, interested in seed production, in agriculture, but that do not necessarily have the detailed technical interest in an individual crop breeding program or things like that, but that want to see the developments in plant breeding in Europe related to what are we supposed to achieve with it. So again, looking rather at what is in it for society, what is it in it for the economy, what does that do as regards job or wealth creation. And that is, I think, a very strong feature of that magazine. And I think that that was something that was missing. I also see potentially an interest in particular in, for example, seed administrations. Many people working in, let's say, plant variety office, registration, variety protection, might have an interest in reading something that gives them a broad overview of what is actually happening in this sector, how do we look at things, how does indeed in this case a journalist look at that, because that is, I think, the second important element. This is not the seed sector writing about itself.
Right.
It's experienced journalists looking at the seed sector, scrutinizing the seed sector, if you will, on certain issues, questioning what we're doing. And I think that is a very interesting approach. So I share your view. What I've seen is many people here in Lisbon walking around with that magazine, and I'm certainly looking forward to see this continued.
As always, a pleasure, sir. Thanks very much for taking the time.
It has been a pleasure for me as well, Shawn.